In this video, we will analyze a literature essay on The Tempest by William Shakespeare. Please note that the essay analyzed is not my own and has been adapted from papersowl.com. Adaptations are indicated by square brackets. Before writing a literature essay, you should analyze your essay question by highlighting, circling, or underlining important words and phrases. Here is our example question. In The Tempest, Shakespeare makes important suggestions about power, control, and relationships. By referring to at least two relationships and the theme of power in The Tempest, write an essay of 500 to 600 words in which you discuss to what extent the above quote is true. The important words in this question are power, control, relationships, two relationships, theme of power, and 500 to 600 words. Next, you should plan your essay. Your planning should include the following. An introduction. It is advisable to include your introduction in your planning as this will help you order your thoughts. It is okay, and it is also likely that your introduction will change slightly from your planning to your final essay. You can use a mind map or a table to plan your paragraphs. You can use the peel method to plan each paragraph. This means making a point, in other words, your thesis statement at the beginning of a paragraph, providing evidence in the form of a quote, explaining how the quote proves your point, and then linking the paragraph to the topic as a whole. In your planning, you should also include quotes you will use in your essay. This will ensure you have sufficient, relevant quotes for each point you make. Let's read and analyze our example essay. Our introduction is this. In The Tempest by William Shakespeare, power and control are predominant themes. Many of the characters are struggling for their freedom, which forces some characters to misuse their power. Prospero sustains a great deal of power throughout the play and thus creates a theme of power and control with a few different characters. In order to demonstrate power relationships in The Tempest, Shakespeare plays with master-servant relationships and uses Prospero to control other characters. This is a great introduction. The writer has included and underlined the play title and stated who the author is. This is a key component of any good literature essay introduction. Next, there is a clear general statement. A general statement tells the reader generally what the essay is about. Then, there is an excellent thesis statement. A thesis statement tells the reader specifically what the essay discusses. You can also have a much simpler and easier to understand thesis statement, like this one. This essay discusses master-servant relationships and how Prospero controls other characters in order to demonstrate power relationships in The Tempest. Another way to start your essay would be to start with an interesting quote that pertains to the essay topic and the play. This quote should be incorporated into a full sentence. Let's move on to our first body paragraph. In the play, Prospero is master to Ariel and Caliban. Although Prospero conducts each of these relationships differently, they are both a master-servant type of connection. Prospero's magical powers allow him to take control of situations. He has power over his surroundings, and he uses it for his own good in the course of the play. This leads Caliban to test Prospero's control and become Stefano's servant later on. However, while he escapes one power relationship, Caliban ends up making another one for himself. He tells Stefano he wants to become his servant, saying, "I'll show thee every fertile inch of the island, and I will kiss thy foot. I prithee, be my god." In this quote, a reader can see how Caliban wants to be Stefano's servant to escape Prospero's harsh ruling over him. He calls Stefano God and says he will help Stefano take over the island and show him the fertile parts. Thus, Shakespeare makes an important suggestion about power and relationships, as Caliban seems to shift from one power relationship to another while being the assumed inferior party in both. This is a well-written paragraph. It begins with a thesis statement. In other words, it makes a point. In any literature essay you write, you should always begin body paragraphs with a point you are trying to make. The point here is that Prospero is in a master-servant relationship with Ariel and Caliban. The next few sentences explain the point in more detail by referring specifically to Caliban. If you are using the peel method, you can either make your point, then provide evidence, and then explain your point with the evidence, or you can make your point, explain your point, and then provide evidence to justify your explanation. Either way is correct, so long as you have provided evidence and explained your point. We then have a quote, which is incorporated into a full sentence. Remember that you should not have a standalone quote as a full sentence in a literature essay. You should always incorporate your quotes into full sentences. Here, the sentence goes like this. He tells Stefano he wants to become his servant, saying, comma, in open inverted commas, I'll show thee every inch of the, and so on. The next thing that is important is a concluding statement. Your concluding statement should sum up what your paragraph has discussed and link to the topic as a whole. Let's carry on. Our second body paragraph is this. Furthermore, it seems that power relationships are inescapable in the play. We see this when Gonzalo speaks of a world with no authority and he is made fun of and taunted. Sebastian prompts him that he would still be king and would still be in control. Caliban says, no more dams I'll make for fish. He has a new master. Get a new man. Freedom, high day, freedom. Freedom, high day, freedom. Caliban has been a slave his entire life, so freedom to him is described as being free from Prospero. Also, this is shown between Prospero and his brother Antonio. Throughout the Tempest, the relationship between the two brothers consists of themes like abuse of authority and even betrayal and responsibility. Shakespeare would have chosen to highlight this control in his play to show how harsh the rule of people in power could be. Just like the first body paragraph, this paragraph follows the same structure and has a point, an explanation, evidence, and a concluding statement. So you should be getting the idea that in your essay, you should have a clear, logical structure in every paragraph, which includes a point, an explanation, evidence in the form of quotes or vice versa, and a concluding statement. There are other important things to remember and consider in your essays. This paragraph begins with a signpost or transition word. Transition words link your previous paragraph to your current paragraph. This paragraph is, however, missing an important aspect. It makes the statement, we see this when Gonzalo speaks of a world with no authority and he is made fun of and taunted. Sebastian prompts him that he would still be king and would still be in control. But there is no quote as evidence to prove this point. This is a crucial part of the paragraph that is missing. Then there is a quote from Caliban which seems misplaced. There perhaps should be a short statement about Caliban and his idea of freedom before the quote. Added to this, there is also a quote missing before the concluding statement. The writer has made a statement about abuse of authority, betrayal, and responsibility, but has not substantiated it with any evidence. I hope that you're beginning to see how important it is for you to include all components of a paragraph. In other words, you must have a thesis statement or point, you must have evidence in the form of quotes, you must have an explanation, and you must have some sort of linking or concluding sentence that shows how your paragraph links to the topic as a whole. Leaving out one of these components will make your argument in the paragraph incomplete. Next, let's look at the final body paragraph and then the conclusion. However, occasionally the master and slave power is undermined, such as at the beginning of the play when the boatswain takes control. Here, if it was not for him taking control for his master, they may have all died. Shakespeare also presents a change in the balance of Prospero's power. The reason Prospero has so much power is because of his magic. However, at the end of the play, he sacrifices his powers and frees his slaves. This could possibly show how Shakespeare hopes the rule of those in charge may not be like this forever. Firstly, you should notice that there is a transition word, which means that our paragraph transitions smoothly from the previous paragraph, allowing the essay to have logical progression. We then have 2 points being made in the thesis statement and an explanation. However, there is no quote from the play provided. This means the writer has not substantiated their point with evidence. There should be a quote incorporated into a full sentence after the word slaves. If we are discussing Prospero's loss of power and how he has relinquished his power, there is a beautiful quote at the end of the play in which Prospero speaks about burning his books. This quote would be appropriate here. The paragraph then ends with a concluding statement. However, This paragraph does not seem detailed enough at all when we compare it to the detail in the first paragraph. There is more analysis needed here. The argument presented seems flimsy. If you look at the bottom of the screen, you will see that the total word count is about 560 words. This means there is still enough space for more analysis. Always ensure you are providing sufficient detail with appropriate quotes as evidence in every paragraph. The conclusion is well written. All things considered, Shakespeare plays with master-servant relationships in The Tempest and uses Prospero to control other characters to demonstrate power relationships. He does this successfully by using Prospero to control other characters and show how these relationships are inescapable within the play. By using these relationships, Shakespeare highlights how people of power had little respect for those under them and used manipulation for their own ends. It begins with a transition phrase, which again provides logical progression in the essay. It then reiterates the power relationships the essay has discussed. Notice how there is no new piece of information, no new point being made, and no new quote in the conclusion. You must ensure you simply reiterate what your essay has discussed and do not include new pieces of information or new quotes. The last sentence of this conclusion seems slightly odd. Respect and manipulation are mentioned, but they seem vague and out of place. The sentence could perhaps be worded better or be more specific in order to have a better conclusion. Here is a synopsis of what was good in the essay and what you should aim for in your literature essays. Firstly, there is a good introduction with a general statement, a thesis statement, the title of the play underlined, and the author. Next, there is excellent signposting and transition words. Thirdly, where quotes are used, they are appropriate for the context and are incorporated into full sentences. They do not stand on their own. Then, there is good paragraph structure with a clear point, explanation, evidence, and link. This means that where full analyses are provided, they are structurally and logically well organized with sufficient detail. Next, the grammar and spelling are correct. This is so important. It is so easy to lose marks for incorrect grammar, spelling, and structure. Lastly, there are varied sentences. Not all sentences are the same length or grammatical structure, and this makes the writing interesting. Finally, here's a list of things that could be improved in this essay. In the second and third paragraphs, there are vague arguments with insufficient quotes. Remember that in your literature essay, every paragraph or argument must be well explained and well substantiated with quotes. Next, not all power relationships are discussed in enough detail, and there are some power relationships that have been left out that could have been discussed, especially considering that there is still some space in the word count. Then, the last sentence of the conclusion seems slightly misplaced and could be worded a little better. That concludes our analysis of the essay on The Tempest by William Shakespeare. I hope this has given you a good indication of how to write an excellent literature essay for The Tempest.